Have you ever watched the flakes on hot takoyaki tremble as if they were alive? Nothing inside them is moving. The heat below makes each paper-thin slice curl, lift, and flutter. What is stranger is where those flakes came from. Before they became light enough to dance, the fish was turned into a block so hard that it is often described as one of the hardest foods in the world. Reaching that point takes months. The fish is boiled, smoked again and again, covered with mold, dried in the sun, and left to mature. This is katsuobushi. Why would anyone transform a fish into something that resembles wood, only to shave it into slices thinner than paper? The answer begins at Nishi-Izu port in Shizuoka, where frozen skipjack tuna arrives before traveling to a small family workshop in Nishi-Izu. Let's get into it right here on Simple Things Revealed. Before the fish can dry, it has to survive. Kanesa Katsuobushi Shoten has preserved this method for roughly 200 years. Today, the workshop is run by the 5th generation of the same family. The tuna cannot go straight into the smokehouse. Frozen flesh would thaw unevenly, tear easily, and lose its shape. Instead, the fish is left to defrost slowly overnight. Only then are the head and internal organs removed. The body is divided into long fillets, and a curved tool called a horseshoe knife is used to cut away the dorsal fin. It is a small detail, but it reveals how specialized the craft has become. One knife, one task, repeated across generations. The fillets are packed into metal baskets and boiled for about 90 minutes. This does more than cook them. It gives the soft flesh enough firmness to withstand the long drying process ahead. After boiling, the pieces are cooled in water, helping the meat tighten further. Then comes a job machines still struggle to perform gently, removing every remaining bone without tearing the fish. Workers slide their fingertips over the cooked fillets, searching for anything hard beneath the surface. A small bone is lifted out, then another. Too much pressure can split the flesh, so the work depends on touch rather than speed. By the end of this stage, the fish is cooked, clean, and strong enough to hold together. Now comes the harder problem. A thick fillet contains water deep inside it. Remove that moisture too quickly, and the outside burns before the center has even begun to dry. A 100-year-old smokehouse with no control panel. The prepared fish enters a smokehouse that has been used for more than a century. Each session lasts around 6 to 8 hours. During the first round, moisture leaves the surface, the flesh becomes firmer, and smoke begins building the aroma that will remain in the finished block. But the furnace does not behave like a modern oven. Heat gathers in one area and fades in another. One side can rise above 100 degrees Celsius, while a spot only a short distance away feels far cooler. Trays near the front, back, top, and bottom all receive different amounts of heat. The workers measure those differences with their hands. In one place, the air becomes painful after only a few seconds. Shifts slightly to the side, and the heat may feel almost harmless. That contrast tells them where the fire is reaching and which trays need to be turned, lifted, lowered, or moved. A thick fillet dries much like a heavy towel. Its surface can feel dry while the center still holds water. Turning up the fire would not solve the problem. It would scorch the outside and leave the moisture trapped within. So the fish is heated gradually. After smoking, it is allowed to rest, giving moisture deeper in the flesh time to move outward before the next stage of drying. There is no single dramatic moment when the fillet becomes katsuobushi. The change happens by degrees, guided by people who know how to read a flame without pressing a button. As water leaves, however, the fish begins to shrink, and it does not shrink evenly. They use fish to patch the fish itself. Drying pulls the flesh inward. Some sections contract faster than others, leaving cracks, hollows, and rough edges across the surface. The solution looks more like construction work than food preparation. Skipjack meat is ground into a thick paste, then pressed into the damaged areas. A worker smooths it over the fish almost like a mason spreading mortar across a wall. The difference is that both the mortar and the wall come from the same animal. This repair restores the shape of each piece before it returns to the smokehouse. The fish is then smoked more than 10 additional times. No single round changes it completely. Instead, each cycle removes another small amount of moisture. The fillet becomes lighter, denser, and less flexible. Its fibers pull closer together until the piece can hold its form like a solid block. It already seems finished. It is not. Smoke and heat can remove much of the available water, but the last moisture is buried deeper in the fish. Applying more heat would risk damaging the surface before reaching the center. To continue drying without burning the block, the process shifts from fire to something most people would normally avoid on food: mold. The mold does not spoil the fish, it helps dry it further. The smoked blocks are placed in boxes where a beneficial mold is allowed to grow over the surface. This does not mean an ordinary piece of moldy food is safe. Here, mold is part of a controlled traditional process. Its most important job is to draw moisture from deeper inside the fish toward the outside. As the block dries further, it also becomes less suitable for many organisms that cause spoilage. After one period of aging, the fish is taken outside and left in the sun for about a day. Then it returns to storage. This pattern is repeated 6 to 8 times, with each round usually separated by 20 to 30 days. The aging alone takes at least 120 days. From the first preparation to the final block, the entire process can last more than half a year. By then, fermented katsuobushi may contain less than about 16% moisture. Its hardness is not the result of mold alone. Boiling, smoking, resting, sun-drying, and careful handling have all removed water in different ways. What began as a soft, perishable fish has now become dry, polished, and stable enough to keep for a long time. Yet not every block follows the full fermentation path. 2 types, 2 different flavors. One version is stopped after repeated smoking. It keeps more moisture, around 25%, and holds onto a stronger fish flavor. The smoke is easier to notice, and the resulting dashi tastes bold and full. The fermented version continues through mold aging and repeated sun drying. With less moisture remaining, its aroma becomes more delicate and refined, and it can be stored for longer. In the video, shavings from the smoked type are called hanakatsuo, while those from the fermented fish are called kezuribushi. The smoked type brings a direct combination of fish and fire. The fermented type has had more time to mature, so its fragrance is subtler and its flavor feels more concentrated. That difference matters because katsuobushi is rarely eaten as a block. Almost all of its work happens after it meets a blade. More than 6 months of work, used 1 pinch. At a time, traditional katsuobushi is shaved across a wooden box fitted with a sharp blade. The flakes fall into a compartment underneath. Even the direction of the block matters. The tail end feels rougher, while the head end feels smoother. The fish is pushed from tail to head, helping the blade lift long, clean ribbons instead of breaking the block into crumbs. With each pass, the inside catches the light. The surface can look like crystal or polished stone, a reminder of how tightly the flesh has been compressed. Freshly shaved katsuobushi has a stronger aroma than flakes that have spent time exposed to air. That is why shaving it just before use once mattered in many Japanese kitchens. The flakes can be simmered with kombu to make dashi, scattered over noodles, or placed on hot rice with wasabi. A small amount is enough to change the entire dish. Katsuobushi does not merely make food taste like fish. Its umami brings out the sweetness and depth already present in other ingredients. A broth can feel richer without being overloaded with salt, sugar, or heavy seasoning. The block itself may look severe and almost inedible, yet its purpose is delicate, to release flavor a few transparent shavings at a time. The fish as hard as wood is really a way of preserving time. Katsuobushi begins as soft fish filled with water and vulnerable to spoilage. Months later, it has become a dry block built to last. A few strokes across a blade then turn it into something light enough to move in steam. Every stage solves a different problem. Boiling helps the flesh hold together. Smoking removes moisture gradually and adds aroma. Patching restores the damaged surface. Mold and sunlight reach the water that fire cannot safely remove. Long before refrigeration, preserving food often meant transforming it rather than keeping it close to its original state. Katsuobushi is a striking example. The fish lasts because it has been changed almost beyond recognition. For the 5th-generation owner of Kanisa, continuing this method is also a way of protecting a family flavor that has survived for centuries. But workshops like this are becoming rare. The process is long, hot, physically demanding, and difficult to teach to someone who has never learned to judge heat by touch. Inside one shaving are months of fire, smoke, sunlight, and human judgment. Perhaps that is what makes katsuobushi remarkable. Not simply that it becomes hard enough to resemble wood, but that so much patience is invested in a flavor that may disappear after only a few bites. Have you ever watched fish flakes dance on hot takoyaki without knowing where they came from? Tell us which Japanese dish, ingredient, or everyday object SST should explore next. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories behind simple things, subscribe to Secrets of Simple Things for the next journey.